Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to this new video of electricairmobility.news. My name is Nicholas Zard, and I will be your host today. And today I want to talk a little bit about preparing for advanced air mobility, and this is part of a keynote presentation I made in Lisbon a few months ago, and I really enjoyed it a lot because preparing for today for tomorrow really means spending pennies on the dollars tomorrow. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nicholas Zard. I've been involved with the electric mobility industry as a journalist and as a consultant since roughly 2006. So now about 17 years. Yes, today is the 15th of February 2024. And so I have a pretty good uncanny first front view seat of the industry. And I have seen a lot, learned a lot, and I'm very happy to talk about it. I'm also the founder and the person at the moment running Electric Air Mobility, the LLC. And what we do is we are a think tank. We are a company that puts together all the pieces to help you to have a successful vertiport infrastructure design and implementation, but much more following that on our website. But today I want to talk about a little bit more about planning for the future and what does that mean when it comes to advanced air mobility. So really the idea is to talk about spending some time today to develop tomorrow's infrastructure is really spending pennies on the dollar. So as we all know right now, we have these really big, beautiful drawings and renderings of what vertiports will look like. And they have 5 to 15 vertipads and tons of terminals, but that's all fine and dandy. That's not going to happen for at least another decade. And yes, not for $5 million, most likely $15, even $30 million over budget. That's the way it is, so we better get used to it. Our idea at Electric Air Mobility is to really start small, but start small in a way that we can grow and implement and at least meet the demand as it builds up over the next few years. So over the next 2-3 years, what we really imagine vertiports come in 3 flavors. Vertistops are going to be very small places with 1 to 2 vertipad. That's the place where eVTOLs land and take off. Then we'll have something a little bit bigger, vertiports, and that will definitely have 1 to 2 to maybe 5 vertipads. But it will also have a terminal, or at least a place where people can come in. Not to say that vertistops don't have terminals. They can have a terminal, but at the very least, they'll need something to shelter people from the elements, maybe rain, snow, or heat. Vertiports, like I said, are going to be a little bit bigger, 1 to 2 terminals, and also will have energy over there. So meaning electricity, liquid fuel, and hydrogen. We need that, and then hopefully energy storage too. Finally, we do see the vertihubs as being much bigger vertiports and also part of a network of vertiports. And they also include what we call MROs, or the places where everything will go to get maintenance and repairs. So really the difference between a vertistop is 1 to 2 vertipads, just a shelter for passengers, most likely no energy, no charging station. This is a place where aircraft come in and out, done deal. Vertiports, on the other hand, this is a place where travelers will come in through the front door, will get vetted, will go to their eVTOL or eSTOL or eCTOLs, it doesn't really matter, and we'll be able to go to another vertipad, to another vertiport, or a downtown center, an airport, wherever. Vertihubs are going to be much bigger. Think of entertainment is going to be part of it. Think of grocery shops. Think of doctor offices. Why not? And all of that will be there. The timeline on these is we really see vertistops already happening today. They're being built. Vertiports are in the design stage right now, so we can start to build them within 6 months to a year. But vertihubs are going to be more down the road, 10 years down the road and everything. So with that, I want to talk about the important part is where will these eVTOLs land and take off? And this is really the most important part because without vertiports, without infrastructure, without vertipads, eVTOLs are just very expensive, beautiful aircraft that cannot fly anywhere except maybe in grass or somewhere where there's just not a lot of space for them. So we have really 3 types of vertipads that we're looking into: static and smart. And if you recall yesterday's video, I'm not going to go into too much details. We've already thought of that. So plan ahead not only a place where you might only start with 1 or 2 vertipads, but also maybe one static vertipad and another one that can be upgraded to become a smart vertipad. What a smart vertipad is, or has that a normal static vertipad doesn't have, are sensors or all sorts of automation that will get into it. Meaning these vertipads will be able to talk, to communicate with the eVTOL, and also better understand the state and the shape and the operational shape of the eVTOL, relay that back to the operator, to the vertiport, and say, hey, came from here, had so many passengers, has that much charge left in it, can go there, diverging routes, alternate flight plans and routes, etc., so on, so on, so forth, which of course will lower your insurance bill at the end of the day. All of these, whether they're static or smart, need to make sure that they evacuate water very quickly, as well as mud, sand, and of course de-icing for all of them, but also protect your buildings, your terminals, the cars, everything around, and of course, most importantly, the passengers from flying debris. That's an important part of it. The next part about planning ahead is also think about the terminals. What will they look like? Obviously, right now, we more or less have a good idea what a terminal will be, a vertiport terminal will be. It'll be close to what a heliport is, maybe even what a tertiary airport is. Think of a very small airport somewhere, one terminal, maybe two. And here we really have to think about making sense of passenger traffic flow, but also building safety into it all. You're going to have, if you're in the US, TSA, if you're anywhere, security, and you're going to need to have a special room for security in case, could happen, some passengers might become a little unruly, or maybe are just not supposed to fly at all. Who knows? But also, like we said yesterday, think about putting scales, because people will come in sometimes with super heavy suitcases, and that will not go in the aircraft. And this is where your drone operations will be a perfect way to say, hey, for $50 more, you can fly your suitcase to final destination. And I'm saying $50, it could be less, it could be more, hopefully less. But think of these terminals as being shelters, whether it's just a shelter from the sun, for the environment, to full-on amenities. Vertiports will most likely have, at the very least, I would say, hot beverages, hot tea, hot coffee, even cold beverages, maybe snacks or something like that. But as we build bigger vertiports, now we're branching off to the vertihub. Think of, well, restaurants, fast food. Think of hopefully healthy food, not just fast food, but healthy fast food, right? These things need to be thought of now to make sure you can go the distance tomorrow. Another thing to take into consideration is to also make them shelter-proof. In other words, what if there is a flooding? What if there is a tornado? What if there's a big fire? Think of your terminals as acting as some sort of relief shelter where aircraft are going to be coming in and coming out to remove people or to move people to safety. So this is also a very important topic to keep in mind. Now, the ecosystem of a vertiport is extremely important. And before we talk about energy use, I want to talk about probably the most important thing is how do we integrate this new air traffic movement into the already existing air traffic management system? So how do we integrate aircraft that will take off like helicopters, fly like airplanes, and land like helicopters into what we already have now, which is a mix of military, law enforcement, ambulance, and of course, commercial aviation. Yes, the eVTOLs that we are being led to see now will not fly most likely above 4,000 feet, maybe 5,000 feet at most. So once they're up in flight, they're not going to interfere with, big jets flying at 40,000 feet or something like that. However, the landing and the taking off is where we're going to need a lot of work done. And a lot of work is done right now on what we call ATM, air traffic management, and also what we call uncrewed traffic management, or UTM. Great companies are working on this right now. I'll draw your attention to ANRA, A-N-R-A Technologies. These guys have an amazing system that not only helps with UTM/ATM or A/UTM. I don't know, we're going to have to find a new term for this, but also with a vertiport management system. And that leads into my other part of the discussion is the energy part of it. We're going to need to know how much energy is needed. When do we use it? When does it need to be dispatched? What form? Is it electricity? Is it Jet A? Is it sustainable aviation fuel? Is it hydrogen? Most likely a mix of all. And what about that excess energy? What will you do with it? Leave it for tomorrow? Maybe, maybe not. Resell it to utilities? Why not? Another thing to take into consideration is your passenger movement intelligence data gathering. Where are your passengers coming from? Where are they going? Are they frequent flyers? Who do they fly with? Do they like vegan food? Do they like meat? Do they like fish? All of these is going to be very important all these questions are going to be very important to gather up to get a better understanding of how your vertiport is being frequented and also what you can sell at these airports. And I'm not just talking about data resell, which of course will be part of it, but at least to understand the traffic movement of all that. We do have some great companies that work on this. But the idea here, again, is to really think about where will your data be stored, where your data and how your data is going to be analyzed, and what will you do with this analysis at the end of the day. Finally, the one of the last slides, or the last slides I had, was really to build a smart and intelligent, robust and flexible infrastructure for advanced air mobility. You need to design vertiports that are flexible. If you start with just a simple vertistop with 1 or 2 vertipads, fine. But take into consideration that it might be modular. We might make it all of a sudden that shelter could morph into a terminal. And all of a sudden, instead of 1 to 2 vertipads, well, you know what? There's room for 5 vertipads. Now you have a vertiport. All of a sudden, you acquire the land next to you, and whammo, you can have a vertihub. But most importantly, the 2 things you need to take into consideration before you start to strategize on whether you want a vertistop or a vertiport or a vertihub is where does this fit in the mobility strategy of where it will be located? Is it going to be next to a city? Is it going to be next to an airport? Is it going to be next to an urban center? And also, very importantly, how far is the closest substation to the vertiport? Because this means having electricity and energy to blackouts. And in some parts of the US, we have blackouts. So that's why energy storage, battery solutions, or hydrogen, or both ideally, are extremely important, where you can charge at night when electricity is plentiful, usually a little bit cheaper, and use that electricity or that energy to make hydrogen during the day, where you can feed your eVTOLs that will use hydrogen or transfer it back to electricity. Very, very, very important to think of flexibility, scalability. We've talked about vertiport energy, so the different types of energies, usually 3, electricity, jet fuels, or hydrogen, and ideally all 3 of them. But think about storage with all of that. And when we think about this, by the way, we think of smart grid applications, right? Your vertiport needs to be a part of a smarter grid. And since in the US at least we have deteriorating grid due to decades of lack of maintenance and investments, you're going to play a very big role in the future of our homemade energy, secured homemade energy. Terminals, we talked about it. Whatever you design, make sure you can grow it out. And of course, the ecosystem, it's a little bit outside of your hands, but this is something that we offer. We know the companies working on systems that are flexible, robust enough to meet everything that you need to have today. So that concluded my talk, which was really, really interesting, and I had a great time, first of all, visiting Portugal. It's always amazing to visit Portugal, but to talk about how important it is to think ahead and to understand what it takes to build a scalable vertiport infrastructure. What it also means is to take into consideration things that you might not think will make it in the long run. Some people don't think hydrogen will be part of advanced air mobility. Others don't think that Jet A is going to be around for more than 5 years. Well, who knows? And especially, who cares? Better prepared than unprepared. Better spending pennies today than multi-million-dollar over budget snafus to have to handle. Again, this is Nicolas Zart. I am the founder at Electric Air Mobility, the LLC, and I'm excited to present to you this YouTube channel. Bear in mind that we're still ramping up. The website is nowhere near where it's supposed to be, and it's 6 months in the making. I think those of you who have websites understand where I'm coming from. Plenty of people show up, but not everybody always delivers, or at all. So we're just ramping up on the look and feel. There is plenty of content that will go live on the website. I have more content that I can deal with. I'm also very happy to present at some point a good interview once a week with veterans in the industry to make you understand a little bit better what the future of our aerial mobility is. And again, my name is Nicholas Zart. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please subscribe. Please leave your comments. Please go and visit our Patreon page. It's very simple to find. Just look for Electric Air Mobility and you will find us. If you can buy me a coffee, it'll help me get better backgrounds than just a blue background and to understand this whole OBS thing. Once again, thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow.